Hello everyone, this is Erik. I am the creator of the Swordland role-playing game system, and I would love to welcome you to this first edition of the Swordland blog for the Facebook page for said game system. You also may know me as the Fest Hall coordinator for AetherCon Online RPG Convention, and also as the scheduling head manager for the Great Falls Gaming Rendezvous in Great Falls, Montana. First off, I want to answer the question that everyone's probably wondering now that they're really starting to just kind of see this page and we've gotten somewhere around the 54 likes. What exactly is Swordland? What is a Swordland? I figure is what everybody's kind of wondering right about now. To start that question off, Swordland RPG is a D12 based role-playing game system using the open game license rules and terms in order to create such a device. If you're more interested in the open game license and the fine details behind it and also the associated system resource document, I would recommend that you go search for those two items. Google search is probably your best bet. But those in particular allow us to be able to use certain terms familiar to most people in the roleplay community, such as hit points, armor class, 6 ability score, strength, dexterity, constitution, charisma, wisdom, and intelligence, so on and so forth. So when you're playing Swordland, it does feel a little bit like previous roleplay game systems, as it is very much inspired by those systems, though it has its major design elements that are very different from those traditional systems. Precisely, most of those game systems in the past use the 20-sided D20 die right here. Swordland uses just the little D12s that you see here, a little 12-sided die. Most previous systems used a whole set of 7. You have D20s, D10s, D12s, the D percentile, which is essentially another D10. You also have D4s, D8s, and D6s. Though with the market as it is, there's a lot of D10, D percentile based systems out there, a lot of D6 based systems out there. Obviously, the golden standard of the market is the D20. When I set out to create Swordland, I wanted to do something very essentially different from those systems. And Swordland came out of the basis that I don't really think anybody's really made a serious game system using these dies. And furthermore, I don't think anybody's used a system or made a system relying only on the D12. This little thing is used for everything in the Swordland system. Now also people might be wondering who exactly is working on this project, and I will say there is a planned business that will be running this. That business is going to be known as IGRE, or Interesting Game Rules and Entertainment. We're hopefully going to be up and running sometime by early 2014 is my projected estimated date of arrival. Hopefully by that point we'll have some more detailed mechanics, perhaps game books at that point, though that discussion will come a little bit in this video. Who is on IGRE, you may be wondering. You are looking at the one sole employee of IGRE right now. Me, Erik. I'm obviously the creator of the Swordland RPG system, also the head manager for IGRE, the marketing manager for IGRE, the art direction director of IGRE, main writer for IGRE, playtesting head for IGRE. As you can tell, it's a pretty small business as it is just me at the moment. I am looking forward to inviting several people of interest to write modules for IGRE in the future, though those modules will come at a point once we actually have the core rulebook out. The other person that is part very much integral to the just the Swordland project in general, and even more so the Elios setting that I wrote for role-playing game systems. Sappy is her DeviantArt handle, Tumblr handle, general artist nickname, real name Alexia Roman, but she's our freelance artist that's created so much of the wonderful artwork that's come out for the system. Also, she's illustrated a number of basically anything and everything I've ever asked for somebody when I commissioned in the past to create a scene based on those campaigns that inspired the Swordland system. She created just the best artwork, beyond perfect, and that was the one person that I wanted working as the main illustrator for the project once we got around to creating the Swordland system. And as you can see, she's played a pretty huge part in that. So even though she's a freelancer, she's very much, I consider, a part of our little two-person business, I guess, at this point. As far as the system goes and where it originated from, basically I'll state out, I originally was not a tabletop RPG player up until 2008 or so. I had kind of experimented with the play-by-post forums back around like 2000, 2001, 2 in that time frame. But originally what just got me interested in the concept of role-playing games in general was basically based on my time playing Super Nintendo with various games like, say, Chrono Trigger, Lufia 2, Rise of the Sinistrals, Dragon Quest series, and all those games that just really kind of just struck me as basically a perfect game because you have an excellent balance of story, you have a class system, which is always fun. Everybody likes being able to pick a class, but basically you just had everything come together. You had interesting mechanics, battles are always fun, and it did play a huge part in my later inspiration to just make this system. It's kind of like a little tribute to all those times that I spent probably killing hundreds upon hundreds of hours playing Dragon Warrior as a kid. But beyond that, when I first got into playing role-playing games on the tabletop basis was at 2008 when the 4th edition of the world's most famous role-playing game was just first released. Me and my two buddies, Levi Lingefelter and Edwin Torres, had always kind of wondered what tabletop role-playing was and how unique it was. We were just kind of interested as it kind of struck us as gamers, primarily coming from a video game background. We wanted to kind of see the roots of where our hobby came from in general. And I cannot tell you enough, that was probably one of the best decisions I had made in my life up to this point, because it just blew me away once I had picked up my first couple of rule books and got told to basically learn the entire system in the course of a night so we'd be able to run it the next day. It just blew my mind, the imagination that was required of the game master and also required of the players to create a world out of essentially nothing but the bare mechanics of the world itself. And we can't even say the world itself. It was just mechanics. That's something that did play into Swordland's creation as a toolbox-based system rather than being a system based on an actual setting, as some other examples out there in the market. But it just blew me away. going from playing a pre-structured video game, role-playing game where I'll squeeze it, but just going from the pre-structured elements of a video game and going straight into just the pure, essential, unadulterated madness that comes out of a tabletop role-playing game. That just really struck a chord, because it was at a point that you realize, as the game master, you can create anything you want to. You can put out any story you want. You can create any character you want. You can create any kind of weapon you want. You can create anything and everything that envelops the game world as you run it and as you play in it via your characters. It was something that just really struck a chord with me, and once I had played the tabletop role-playing games, it just really kind of just struck me that there was no way I could really ever go back to the point where I was going to spend time playing somebody else's story when I'd be able to just make my own. And it kind of was the fun thing about it, since we did play through the first couple of modules for that particular game I started off on, but after a couple of sessions I just kind of threw those out the window and said, alright, I'm going to create something, you guys are going to play in it, and it might be really kind of cliche, but it's something that we kind of created together as a group. And that first rendition of the Helios setting was rather interesting. Perhaps I divulge some later details at another point in time, but it was kind of just your ho-hum standard cliche fantasy, ghosts like dragons, princesses, so on and so forth. But it was something that we had created on our own, and it was something that we were all really kind of just entertained by playing over and over again on a weekly basis. Then there came a point in time where we weren't able to play on that weekly basis just due to our real life issues, and at that point we just kind of stopped for about a year or so. But at the same time, I was just kind of hooked by tabletop in general. I just loved the concept of being able to do what you really want to do when it came to running a game, running just a whole story based on those games. And I continue to work on the Helios setting, and primarily the continent of Aria, as it was known at that time, now known as Area. But things kind of just snowballed, and we got more detail into the world, we got more character background stories, and we'd always just kept kind of talking about how we were going to get back into tabletop, but it took us the year to do so. We then rebooted that original campaign around 2010 or so, and as just kind of circumstance and just kind of odd coincidence, I started posting up the replays, or basically the transcripts of those sessions on places like DeviantArt, where I ran into people like Sappy, or Lunarep on there, who's also another amazing artist. And people kind of showed a lot of interest in the Helios setting, and some of the more kind of quote-unquote famous characters, such as, say, Viper Kaleidostep or Aris the Green Swordsman. And people just kind of seemed to like the style of game I was running, kind of more on the dramatic, serious side of things, rather than just be kind of a ho-hum, typical Monty Python-esque fantasy setting. And I gotta admit, it kind of made my ego go up a little bit. I was pretty entertained by the fact that people were enjoying what I was writing. And then I kind of came to the point, well, what do these characters look like, since we've really never gotten any sketches done of them or anything. And my drawing ability is probably along the lines of a 5-year-old when it comes to actually drawing. So we started kind of commissioning several artists back in the day, just to kind of figure out what certain characters would look like. That's the big turning point when we decided to make the Swordland system, and just my basin point of I wanted to work on this as more than a hobby. I wanted to work on this to create things. Was the point I had commissioned Karena, the representative rogue character for the Swordland system by Lunareth, as I mentioned previously. It was a nice little chibi sketch, just kind of fun, silly, usual rogue standing on treasure, kind of laughing about how rich she is, so on and so forth. But one of the commenters on that particular picture went on to say, if this was a role-playing game character, I would love to play it, because this is such an interesting character, and I just would love to play as this character. And it kind of struck me because I did originally create the first few characters that I made for our campaign on Wednesdays, kind of generic, just so I can get the feel of, okay, ours is a fighter, so this is how a fighter would act. Or fight as a ranger, this is how rangers act. And as a rogue, and rogues act like this, so on and so forth. But it was at that point I realized, if people like these character designs, how about, I kind of just go out and release the whole campaign setting that these characters' adventures took place in. At that point, me, started working on the Helios setting and was polishing it to a point where we could release it under the OGL as a D20 based campaign setting. After a while, that did get shelved as I was kind of running into issues of how to present just a whole book of fluff writing for a general audience appropriately. And after a point, it just kind of stuck that, rather than focusing on a campaign setting for a standard D20 system when there's already probably hundreds of campaign settings like that already out there, how about we actually make a whole game system? How about we make a new system that nobody's tried doing before? And at that point, it was probably around 2012. I want to say it was October that I'd kind of given up on writing the Helios setting for publication as a D20 project, and decided to focus on creating a new game system. At that point, I started working on a little project called Itty Bitty Quest, which was a D4 based little game system with a kind of just a standard dice pool mechanic that I'm still kind of tinkering around with, but has also been kind of shelved. Swordland itself took off around December of 2012, as I kind of realized Itty Bitty Quest was also kind of heading the same way as the Helios campaign setting. Great ideas, but I still have yet to kind of come up with a way to truly portray them the way I wanted to, and just kind of ran into general writer's block on those projects. By this point, me and Safi had already worked several times before on previous artworks and commissions of the original Araya campaigns. And we just kind of started bouncing ideas back and forth. It's like, hey, I'm writing this game system. I'm still trying to figure out exactly how I want to portray the mechanics. And then she started working on some of the characters that came to be the representative characters of the various classes in the Swordland RPG. It was around December I did decide that I wanted to use the D12 system as the main mechanic behind Swordland RPG. I wanted to use just the D12 alone, as it did seem like something that hasn't really been approached in a serious form yet. And I wanted to kind of correct that situation and just kind of put our foot and just kind of make our mark, so to say, on the RPG community, as it's been a wonderful experience just kind of being in this community, and I just wanted to make something that I'd be glad to share with the rest of all of you out there, and anybody still watching this 20-minute by now video. So the first time we did get the Swordland rules kind of tightened up was in the early months of January, February. I did decide by February 2013 that we were seriously going to work on Swordland RPG as a project, and I got the first few rule sets kind of written up. The basic mechanics of how attack rolls worked, how combat worked, how what were known at the time as general feats and combat feats, which now kind of got replaced by the flat term of abilities. So we got basic mechanics of how just kind of the system would work in general done by that point. We started presenting that as the public playtest material. The first time that Swordland got ran by the GM, and actually the system creator as well, at any kind of public showing was International Tabletop Day 2013 in March. And really, to get to the point of the matter, I was really unsure how people were going to take to the system at that point, since we were going from straight D20 or another common D6 platform and going towards a completely unknown territory for most people of we're just going to use this one die here. However, the way that people reacted to that initial run of the system was beyond all expectations. People absolutely loved playing Swordland RPG, and it was something that just kind of amazed me, because even though I was already trying to work on this for eventual publication purposes, it just kind of amazed me how well it took off at that point, when really it was just kind of a bunch of scribbled notes on Notepad and some typed up documents, and then just kind of print off and lay all that material out on the table and say, this is my game system, let's give it a run. You're probably going to hate it, but they didn't. That was exciting. And we just kind of gone on from that point. People are still playing in regular little public playtests I've been running at our local little game club in Great Falls, known as the Sandbaggers Club, and getting lots of feedback on general kind of playtest issues and bugs of the system that I still need to kind of iron out and make sure don't carry on further sets of rules. The next point we did run Swordland was over at MizCon 27 in Missoula, Montana. And it was really at that point, I think, that we got a formula that worked, because we had 3 out of 4 days were completely booked with 7 players each game. Monday was the last day of that convention, and we didn't get a whole set of 7 in there, as mostly everybody had already left by that point. But it just kind of showed me that there were a lot of people that, even though they had never heard of the Swordland system before, once they got to the table and I explained to them what this game is, they were excited to hear about it. They were excited to play it, and they were really excited to just kind of go on and say that they had enjoyed playing the system, which still amazed me at this point. And this was only in May. The system's still kind of slowly progressing, starting to ramp up efforts here to release version 2 of the rules. But even in its rough conceptual stages, people were really enjoying just playing Swordland. And it's something that I've come to realize this is something that I must get out there no matter what the cost is to me. I want to get this out there. And that, I have to say, is the current state of the project. It's kind of, well, it's not really do or die, put it that way, but just kind of do or sit around and be lazy, and I don't like being lazy. I'd rather get this out for you guys to play it. That does bring up the question that I've been asked by several people now. Is, well, you got this page up for a role-playing game system. Where's the role-playing game? And to put that simply, I do have the system as it is written. There's some portions of the system, like classes, most of the feats, the how to play, character creation. Most of that material's about good to go for version 2 of the rule set, but there's still a lot of the just general how do I play Swordland documents that are still kind of unfinished, and it's really hard to kind of just put out the classes and feats alone, and those portions, the hard mechanics of the system, without giving you the basis of this is how we should run the system. So I do want to get those documents done, and those just basic guidelines on how to play the system done before I release the version 2 of the rules. At a near point in the future, those rules will be out, though, in the form of a public playtest package. Also, I am thinking about just kind of posting up tidbits of the system, like just a class per week or something. Probably starting with a fighter this week if I get around to it. Just showing you the general progress of this is how a fighter in the Swordland RPG system is going to look, or this is how some portion of the combat system is going to look, or this is how character interaction is going to work in Swordland. Those kind of like just really short page PDF files, so on and so forth. But I do want to get this material out to you, and the thing is I want to do a good job of getting that material out to you, so I do apologize about that wait, but you will be getting it. I can guarantee you that. At this point, it does seem like I'm coming down close to a 30-minute video about the Swordland system, and I do suppose you guys have other things to get around to. However, I can tell you that this is going to be a regular feature on the Swordland Facebook page, and this little video series is just kind of focused on all the kind of not so hard mechanic issues I deal with on the Forging the Swordland articles on Friday. I'm not really concerned about talking about, say, armor reduction versus just standard armor class systems, or like the fine details of the combat system in this series of videos. More so, I'm just this is my way of putting out a state of the Swordland address in a way. Basically showing you where I'm coming from, where I'm writing this system, and the people that are working on the system with me get their due credit as well. And also just kind of show the various inspirations on the system and how they affected my way of thinking when it comes to making the Swordland RPG system. Yeah. And that out of the way, I don't really think there is too much I can really talk about at the current point in time that hasn't already been said. I do see that there's already been a number of questions posted up on the page, and I would like you to continue posting questions for me to get back to, Safi to get back to. At some further point, we might actually have a few more employees for IGRE working on answering questions for the Swordland page. I do love those questions. I do want you to pose those questions to me, even if it may kind of seem like, oh, you're going to hurt Erik's feelings if you write this. No, go straight on ahead. I'm willing to answer any criticisms. I'm more than glad to answer any questions, because if you ask questions and I can answer them for you, I can show you how the system is intended to be run, and then also you can pose to me, this is how you would run it. And I'd love to hear how you would want to run your hypothetical game system, and how you would run the Swordland rules in your specific way, as that is going to help me in the long run to build the system in a way that everyone's going to be able to enjoy it. And that is the one thing I want to do, is make this something for everybody. I don't want it to fall into a niche market. I want Swordland to be something that everyone, regardless of age and regardless any other factor, they should be able to play Swordland and have a great time doing so. With that, I think it's time to sign off. But I will be seeing you every Monday here on the Swordland page. And I'm hoping that you'll stay tuned for next week. Until then, this is Erik signing off.